You know what? How about I? Okay, I totally get what you're saying.
So it looks like a monitor with an arrow on it.
Got you. Is this what you want to see?
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
So how long have you been playing the game?
I think I played for like 6 months straight when it first came out, and
Mm-hmm.
then I got bored of the meta and quit.
Mm-hmm.
And just came back 3 weeks ago. Now trying to learn all the new cards.
Cool. Do you have any particular goals with your being on the game or?
Look, that Nick Assassin, like I just find it kind of weird. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's really great. It's got a lot of tools, but you got to search for them. That's the weird thing. I don't know. Just find it kind of hard if you're getting rushed down by a deck and they draw good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just find that you come behind. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like it doesn't have like a way out unless you draw the cards right.
Gotcha.
So, and then after that, like the way the new meta, how everybody's playing it, just find it like before it was like sort of like you wait, you know what I mean, and then you go for your turn. But now it's like, wow, you wait and you take damage all the way to your like probably around 9 ticks left, and then after that, then you come back. So just trying to get used to that. How people just kind of let that happen. You know what I mean?
You mean like the momentum of the game or?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the momentum. Like if you're playing a like a Nyx assassin or anything of those tribunals, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you let you know what I mean. You can just let them hit you in the face, and you be like, yeah, I'm just waiting. I just need one more card, and okay, now it's my turn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you have
Like
proactive win conditions that can flip the board very quickly.
yeah, so it's like I'm just trying to get used to it. I'm trying to figure out which cards and like kind of like how to tell. Like you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? That they're about to do that shit. So either rush down or slow down. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so you're just trying to understand different archetypes in the game and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any goals as far as are you interested in playing in tournaments at some point? Maybe not, or that kind of thing.
I'm just interested in playing people that know how to play really well, so make my fucking head hurt. That's it. I
Cool.
just want my head to hurt when I'm playing a game. That's all I want.
Sure.
You
Um,
know, I don't know
yeah,
if that makes any sense.
it does. Yeah, you want to be challenged. That's cool. So what's a deck that you want to work on?
All right, let's do this Nyx Assassin.
Maybe not that one, if that's okay. Just because I think it's very specific in the sense that I don't like if you're just coming back to the game. That deck will teach you. You'll learn a lot about playing that deck, but you won't actually learn a lot about the game. If that makes
All right,
sense.
then
Um,
we'll
yeah.
just go. We'll just go battle mages then, buddy.
Okay. Can you open up the deck list?
Absolutely.
All right. Can you blow it up big? Click the top right.
Got you.
Okay. So talk to me about this list.
What's up? Basically, I'm just rushing to hit you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
I am barely trading with you. To be honest, like I try not to use lightning bolt 90% of the time. I'm gonna hit you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
10% of the time, if I have to remove something that's on your board, I'll use it. But in most cases, no. I'm hitting you in the face
Okay.
every which way I can. Either I'm going left and right. I'm using Affy to pretty much, since it's a prophecy battle mage, I got 32, you know what I mean, on the
Mm-hmm.
deck.
So you're
Basically,
teched really hard for the aggro mirror right now, right?
yep.
Okay.
I don't know what you mean by it, but I'm just like
Okay.
I'm pretty
Well,
much aggro.
you should ask if you don't know. So what I mean by that is that your
Yeah.
deck is set up to play well into other aggressive decks right now. You're running a lot of cards that are stronger when you're playing because you're playing an aggro deck, but when you're playing other aggro decks, and that are quite weak against control, right?
Oh,
So for instance, like if a deck's not attacking your face, then prophecies aren't very good, right?
okay.
Like if Rapid
Exactly.
Ambusher doesn't have prophecy, it's a trash card, right?
Yes.
Uh,
Exactly. Either that or if what? If I got let me see what else. If I just get them kind of down. No. I would have to throw 2 ambushers just to get someone in the situation where I can throw the Grantwood just to throw it
Mm-hmm.
out.
So you're
Or
making
you have a Warcraft and
yeah, so you're making like a really polarizing call um, by playing this deck. Do you think it'd be better to depolarize your matchups at all?
like, what do
Or
you mean by that? Like, I
so
don't
right
understand.
so right now, right, you're playing a lot of cards that are like really good in certain matchups and really bad in certain other matchups. So again, this is like a hypothetical, but let's just say, for example, let's say you're like 80% to win a game against aggro and you're 20% to win a game against control. Those aren't like
Oh,
real numbers, but let's just say hypothetically that that's the, based off the way you set yourself up, that that's what the numbers are.
absolutely. I get a control mage or anybody Tavani. If they don't draw well,
Right, you're just
but if they
dead.
draw, but if they draw okay, I might have a chance. But the only thing I can do is put so much pressure on them really, really quick to make them make a mistake, and then I can do it, and then I can go from there.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is, do you think it'd be good to reduce the degree to which you have really like one-sided matchups? Would it be better to make matchups closer, or are you happy just saying, "Hey, I really want to really think that I'm playing against a lot of other aggro decks. I want to have a lot of cards in my deck that are really good in that matchup."
Guess I'm not really worried about playing other decks because if I wanted to play a different kind of tempo, you know what I mean? I guess I'll just play a different deck.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so like again, when you're whether it's playing into ladder or in a tournament or whatever, like again, you really don't want to. I'm asking like, are you okay with, are you comfortable with the fact that you're just gonna accept being really unfavored in a lot of matchups just based off the way your deck's designed?
Yeah, I'm glad to be the underdog. Is that what you're trying to say?
Um, well, as far as it means, so if you're, means, seems like you're talking about you want to have challenging gameplay, you want to play against good players. It seems like you're interested in thinking about how to maximize your win rate, right? That's my impression.
Necessarily, I'm not trying to win all the games. Literally, just trying to learn how everybody plays. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like using Battle Mage to pretty much learn what everybody's doing right now, and then kind of go from
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think this is a very like one-dimensional deck. It's not very broad in its application, right?
No, it's very simple, very
Well, I don't know
simple.
that it's simple. It's actually very hard to play optimally. Like very, very
Well,
hard to play optimally. But um, I yeah. Anyway, but so we don't need to like dwell on the deck list for too long. But are there any particular things you notice when you look at it?
trying to understand your question, buddy, but don't really get it. What you're
Well,
trying to say,
well,
bro?
anything. Is there anything when you look at this? Is there anything that you notice that jumps out at you as being relevant about the deck list?
The only thing you probably, I don't know, I would say the Merrick. Is that the
No, I'm
thing
not
that
talking
jumps
about.
out?
I'm not talking
Is
about
it?
particular cards. I'm just saying for you, not me. Like for you, when you look at this deck, like, what are some things you notice?
I noticed I can remove a support, just one,
Hmm.
and
So what about
I don't know.
your mana curve? Do you know what that means?
So the way I'm playing is like 2 cards where I can throw multiple cards on a certain curve.
So your curve is like the distribution of costs in your deck. So like the little graphic in the top right, like that's a
Yeah.
graphic representation of your curve.
So you're talking about the 2 costs, 15 cards that I got, and then the 4 costs, 13 cards that I have.
Well, the whole thing. What do you notice about it?
That I have way more 2 cards and 4 cards than I have everything else.
Okay, sure. Well, what else do you notice? Like try to dig a little bit deeper.
But I have no 0 and 1 cost cards. Other than that, like
Okay,
removal support is little.
you're making statements about like literally this just things, but on a more macroscopic level. What does that tell you about the way your deck plays, the way those spots in the curve interact, that kind of thing?
All right, I'm trying to get what are you trying to ask? You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah,
the way.
so on like a really basic level, you said, yeah, I have 0 1s, I have 15 2s, I have 13 4s. Yep, those are the numbers in front of you. And try to read a little bit deeper, right? So like some things to consider. You can almost always use all of your mana on turn 4 because you have 13 4s and you can also play 2 2s on turn 4. So you'll virtually never miss like not max out your mana on that turn. However, you're very unlikely, or it's very frequent, you're not going to use all your mana on turn 3, right? Because you have no ones, and you only have 9 threes. So as a result, you're very frequently going to spend 2 mana on turn 3, which is inefficient. Also, Cast Out's not a card you want to play on turn 3 usually. You usually want to play it on like turn 6 or 7. So you basically have 6 threes.
Alright.
So that's yeah. So I think that's that's a kind of thing to notice about like where the weaknesses are in your curve, where your strong points are, where the weak points are, what you need to prioritize. But anyway, I mean that's just some general stuff. Let's look at a game and we can talk about it.
Alright. I kind of get what you're saying. I do. So, gotta have more answers on turn 3, which I kind of don't.
Well,
Don't really have all the best answers to use up all the curve on the thing. I guess just situation dictates when you're playing in the game. I don't know.
Well, I'm not telling you like what you should or shouldn't be doing. I'm just trying to make you aware of those things. It's not like a this is right or this is wrong. It's just trying to understand. You're saying you're trying to learn, you're trying to get different play styles, understand different things. So you need to start thinking about some of like the larger scale stuff.
No, I totally get what you're trying to say. Like if I was trying to make a mana curve deck with this, this would not be ideal because it's not really equally distributed or
Well,
whatever the word you would say. It doesn't. You know what I mean? Because it's
well,
basic.
what deck isn't a mana curve deck? What do you mean?
I don't know. All I know is this deck works.
So you're kind of coming in. All right. Well, let's hop into a game and let's talk about it. No, you're good. You're
Sorry,
good.
sorry, buddy.
No, you're good.
Really, I'm not a smart person, man.
No, don't say that. So I'm gonna record this game while we're doing it, and then we can go back and look at the recording later. So in general with the game, we're going to be talking a lot, but at a certain point, you know, if your turn timer's running down or whatever, you can feel free to just, you know, start taking your turn or whatever. You know, like I'm going to be talking to you longer than you have time in your turn probably.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So what do you think about these cards?
I guess my question is like, what's usually typical for red, blue, and green? Because it's like, I don't know. I really would.
There's a variety of different kinds of archetypes, right? So there's more like
I don't know.
there's everything from hyper aggro all the way to more like rage control. So one thing to note, right, is you saw that they mulliganed 2 cards, so they kept 1 card that could impact some of your decision making.
How so?
Well, because you can think about what cards they would keep, and that can influence how risky of a hand you can keep.
Makes more sense. But that's when I guess that's where my problem is. Kind of like I don't know what a typical three
So
deck would run.
one thing to think about here, right, or two about that opener. Remember we said you basically had like 6 3-drops you actually wanted to play on curve. So even though Merkle Gatekeeper isn't a very powerful 3, it's really important for you to keep it there because your deck is likely not to be able to efficiently use its mana, that spot in your curve. So what are your thoughts about this turn? Because you have 3 options.
Well, to be honest, I'm really just gonna hit him in the face.
Okay. Well, which lane? Why?
They control the field lane.
Why do you want control of the field lane?
Because I want to be able to see what they got. So either or I can.
Well, so don't pass while we're talking. Generally, like don't pass until your turn's over if we're still talking. But it's okay. So so you wanted fields because you wanted to be able to attack into their creatures?
Well, I kind of want to. I guess I just want to see what they're gonna throw. So either have a choice of either I want to control the field lane,
So with
Oh,
this
let me
deck,
say
are
that again
you
as
are you are
boss.
you ever really going to be attacking into their creatures?
Never. I don't want to. I'm not trading.
So then why would you go field?
Uh, so I can pretty much see what they're gonna throw on the first card.
Right, but you could go shadow and still you get to see what they're going to play first, right?
Hmm. I don't know. I'm just really strong about the field lane. Kind of
But
controls the whole entire
yeah,
game.
but
That's just
why?
my opinion. I couldn't tell you why, buddy. I
Yeah,
really
but
couldn't.
why with this deck? Because this deck is
Hmm.
very abnormal. It's very different than most other decks. It's basically a combo deck.
I have no idea. All I know is that I feel like if you control field, it's kind of like you control the mind game.
Yeah, so how are you controlling field by playing a 3-1 in the field lane?
Oh, I'm not, because I'm about to retreat to the shadow lane right now,
So why was it good to go into the field lane in the first place?
just to see what they throw out.
So why do you play that shadow?
Because I'm gonna develop on the shadow lane.
If you play at field, you protect your 5-1, right?
Don't even care about it.
Why not?
It did its. It's already did its damage. I'm trying to push all the way his face.
Right, but
I'm trying to.
you'd get more damage by going field, right? Because the 2/2 could block their 2-power creature and you get 5 more damage in.
Well, I'm just thinking since they threw a Warcrafter, I'm pretty sure they probably have like a fireball.
Why would that tell you they have a fireball?
Because usually that's typical what they kind of play.
Well, so why wouldn't they have played it instead of the Wordcrafter?
Mm, I have no idea because they didn't draw it.
Well, then if they didn't draw it, then why would they then have it then?
Um, I
Also,
don't know.
also if
That's what I'm saying. Like that's my.
also if they did have a firebolt, they could still just firebolt your creature into the shadow lane and still attacking your creature in field. So it's no different, right? It's there's only upside to going into field.
Hmm. All right.
So one thing that's worth noting too about Wordcrafter in general, right, is most of your opponent's creatures are going to be able to trade favorably into yours, but a lot of them are so a lot of times your opponent might have like one good creature that's able to contest your creatures. So one of the things you can do is you can start Shadow. So for instance, let's say then they play the Wordcrafter to contest your Elit. So they get to trade favorably into it. You can go to field then, and if they don't have a good creature to go into field with immediately, then you can strand the Wordcrafter in Shadow for a while. If that makes sense. We can draw that out later too. So just make a play.
Hmm.
You there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
so you need to make a play.
you just. You know, I totally got it. I'm just trying to get what you're saying. You know what I mean? I'm like trying to take it in at the same time.
Yeah, I
Like I don't even care
understand.
if I win or lose the game, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about it after too.
We must protect our
yeah.
stronghold.
Hmm. So,
Shall we put in a dishonest day's work?
Okay, so what are your thoughts now?
either kill it or bounce back, but if I bounce it back, it's still gonna come back in a later time. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to have an answer for it.
Well, you don't have to, right? One thing to consider is that if you bounce it and they replay it, they're spending 5 mana again, so you're basically skipping their turn.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what's the most damage I can get. So 2, 3, that's 5. Yeah, that's fine.
So if
Yeah,
you're gonna do that, would you rather than play the Protector of the Innocent or the more cool?
I'm gonna play the Morgul so I can get the most amount of damage with 5.
You're
So
pushing
it
2
kind of
immediately
contests
and
it.
also developing 4 on board. Do you think you're gonna need the ring charge later in the game?
Um, I you always gonna need the ring charge later in the game, but in
Why do you need the ring charge later in the game?
this situation, I would need it to play 2 cards. So I would guess I just have to deal with it, to be honest.
So if we think about the cards in your hand, right? Next turn you have 6 mana, you have a 6 drop. The following turn you have 7 mana, you have a 5 and a 2. So you naturally
Right.
curve 6 into 7 in your hand, right? So like the ring charge isn't super valuable for you given your current position.
All right. So I get I get it.
One thing worth noting too is the sets up quite well if they do replay the Brynjol. If you have Underworld Vigilante plus the 2/2 on board, can trade into it. You can still push 5.
Come on then. I'll even let you swing first.
Yeah, they didn't, which you're fine with. So you see how it was too low tempo for them to redevelop the Brynjolf again. So they were forced to play a higher tempo play, even though it was less powerful for them in the long term. So you have a couple options here.
Yeah, I can Grant Wood and then see if he's going to throw the Brynjar to the right again, and then I can Underworld Vigilante and pretty much kill it off.
So your option, I mean, the things that you can do, right? You can Ambusher, you can Vigilante, or you can Fate Weaver. So what percentage of your deck is Prophecies?
Couldn't tell you, sir.
So I believe you had 33 Prophecies, so 66%. Fate Weaver, 35? Okay, so 70%. Fate Weaver itself is a prophecy, Graphwood Ambusher is a prophecy, Protective Innocence is a prophecy. How many more prophecies are in your discard? It's the little skull icon in the bottom right. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 prophecies in hand. How many cards are in your deck? How many cards are in your deck? Can you hover over your deck?
50 cards. Oh, how many is left over?
Yeah, 41. Yeah, so left over, you have 29 out of... I mean, again, you can take your turn, but just talking through it, right? You have 29 out of 41 are prophecies, so you're very high odds to hit one if you did go for it. But make a play. Whatever it is. Just choose something.
There is plenty for all.
So to consider that, right, you basically had, I believe if I do the math, if I'm not the complete idiot here, I think you had a 75% chance roughly, maybe a little bit less off Fate Weaver. There's a good chance that on average it might be a stronger result, particularly considering that you're quite far behind in this game. That's maybe worth considering. So what are you thinking?
That my idea in the beginning from turn 1 was to hit him straight in the face and try to push damage as much as possible because I don't want to get to turn 7, turn 8. Has completely changed to more of like I'm trying to control the game in the temple so I can win in a 1-turn kill. So just
Well, it might be hard to do, right? Because your cards are actually pretty high cost, so doing that before they can kill you is probably quite unlikely.
So let's see. Best bet would be wow.
Just gotta pick something.
By Hess!
We must protect our stronghold.
We'll see how they like someone who fights back.
Okay. So you're trying to transition back into field, ignore the 7/4.
Have you come to submit or come to die for the 6th house?
So luckily you have a silence to temporarily ignore that. They're not pushing damage, which is pretty good for you too, because it means you're not actually under threat of dying in the next turn. So do you think that you can kill them the turn after this turn?
You mean kill him on the next turn after?
So do some math. So this turn you're doing 6 to them. How much damage are you developing this turn, and how much are they likely to clear off?
6. They clear off 6. I'll still have 3, 4.
So they'll be at 12, and you'll have 7 damage in play. How much damage do you have from hand?
So I got 7 on this turn.
So then you have
an answer.
So with,
then I have a Underworld, so it's 4. So I got 11, so yeah, I could have potential lethal and then just Hail Mary for a lightning bolt to the end.
Yeah, you'd be
Go
one
face
off,
and then take a
but
raise.
you have lots of prophecies and stuff. One thing too is worth
Yeah.
considering is that Brynjolf, which they still have in hand, is probably gonna have to attack a creature. That should go Shadow
The
Lane.
forest will not suffer your presence.
They're in my sights.
As long as I draw breath.
Uh, Rage on that. He's still gonna get 2 damage off, clear off everything.
Don't worry about Rage Lethal.
We must
I just don't want to stack on one side.
Well, you're pretty stacked on field, so.
Yeah.
So, since so one thing that's worth noting, right? Even if they just have like a firebolt, say here, they can now kill that spinner because they could have like firebolted your 3/2 guard and then attacked the spinner. So you took a lot of risk there because you opened up the spinner to dying to many cards that it. I mean, granted, I guess they could have just firebolted if it was in Shadow too, but I don't know. There are considerations as far as like charge minions, for instance, like a Cliff Racer could have attacked it and taken it down. Firebolt was a bad example, my bad.
Come on then. I'll even
Yeah, so here's an yeah, there you go. Candle Earth Brawler, charge minion.
Of course I'm on your side.
Alright, so I know I'm gonna push for 4. I'm still gonna have 6, but I still want to keep it at where he can't play anything higher. So I'm going to Underworld Vigilante.
Okay.
Pick out the stupid giant.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because I'm attacking on this turn on Garnick, so that means he's open and he can die to him.
Right, but why wouldn't you attack face? How much damage did they have on board?
No one gets through.
Not enough to OTK me.
Okay, even from hand. So they had 18. They had 18 damage on board, and they had 7 mana. Can they easily? Can they easily do 8 damage with 7 mana?
Alright. No.
Okay. So were you
Yes.
under any risk of dying if you went face with both of them?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No one gets through.
Worth noting too here, you actually don't have lethal setup because you can't play your own Onkano next turn, so they can potentially 2-turn kill you here.
Yes, they could.
Perhaps we can help one another.
Well.
Well, I have to see what I proc on Fake Weaver.
Since they didn't hit you, you have yeah, okay, that's pretty good.
So.
No one gets through.
And if they use Telvas to trade, then they won't have the ward again. And then you might have lethal.
Then I have Onkano as lethal unless they don't have a guard to block this.
Yeah, I mean if
he's gonna throw Brynarf.
Well, Brynjolf doesn't do much, but yeah, if they have a reward for the Telvas, or if they have, you know, immediate life gain, like a Snake Tooth Necklace or something, but high odds you win from this position. Not guaranteed though, for sure.
No, it's not guaranteed.
Perhaps we can help one another.
Alright, looks like you got there.
I have many important things on my mind.
Okay. So now what we can do is we can go, so we can watch this recording. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you can stop sharing your screen, and then I'm going to share my screen with you.
Is that how it does?
Alright, let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen, sir.
Okay, perfect. So, can you mute your in-game sound, by the way? Thank you. Okay. So let's go back and look at this again. We talked through some of these things, but we'll go over them again because there's a lot to go through. So let's talk again about this opener. Do you have any more thoughts now that we've gone through that game?
So the opening of what I picked?
Yep.
Spear of Embers. Not a good card to have, especially since I'm on turn 1, 2.
Why not?
Because it doesn't do anything. It just sits there.
So you mean because it's a high cost card?
Yes.
So you have a 2-drop and a 3-drop already, so you don't have to worry about getting them, right?
I guess the correct saying is I have a potential curve.
Well, so you have a
With the
2-drop, so you
two
have something to play on turn 1 and 2.
I just see it as I have something to play since I'm holding the ring.
Mm-hmm. So, if you mulligan the Spear of Embers, what are you mulliganing for? What are you trying to find?
Hopefully, a Protector of Innocence, because I'd rather play that first.
Before the Morkel? Is that what you're saying?
Ideally, I want to play Protector of Innocence and then Affy.
Mm-hmm. So, or just, you mean like there's just kind of lots of different 2-drops that, like, just having another 2-drop could be good in general? Doesn't have to be Protector, but just a 2-drop.
Well, there's the I don't know the name of the card.
Circle
Entirely
Initiate, you probably have Orclan Captain, I assume, maybe
There you
not.
go. I do not have Orclan
Okay.
Captain. No.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly your list. I know you have 15 twos. So you have Elit, you have Circle Initiate, you have Protector of the Innocent, you have Word
So it's
Crafter?
Circle Lit.
No
Circle
Word
Lit.
Crafter? Do you have Harpy?
Have Harpies, yes, but I do not want Harpies because they're prophecy cards. I'd rather use them just to pretty much save damage in case they break a prophecy and it pops out.
Mm-hmm. Do you have Word Crafters or no?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So what are the 2-drops? So you think so? Look, getting a 2-drop would be good. What other cards would be good to have instead of the Spear of Embers?
Circle shit or Protector of the Innocent.
Yeah. So different 2-drops are good. Other than 2-drops, what would you like to get?
An Earthbone Spinner.
Mm-hmm. So just 4 drops in general, right? Because you can get to that point in the curve earlier. You want to make sure you don't miss it. However, right, we talked about before, you're almost never going to miss that point in your curve because you have so many 2s and 4s. So you don't really need to mulligan to try to find something to do on turn 4, right? Or with 4 mana, I should say.
Okay, now I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. So again, I do think it's probably correct to mulligan the card. I think it's important to think through why. Because if you don't know why, then it doesn't matter if you're right or you're wrong.
Totally get it.
Cool. So again, we talked about how like the Morkel is really important because you have very few 3-drops, so you really need to make sure you can hit that point in your curve. Both of these creatures die to common things that your opponent's going to play, right? Like they're always going to be playing Firebolts, they might be playing Stormcloak Vanguards, things of that nature. Anyway, we can move on past the mulligan phase. I don't think it's super complicated. I don't think the 1-card mulligan, the 1-card keep changes too much. Okay, so you have three options here. Let's talk through them again. So your options again are you could pass, you can go field, or you can go shadow.
I guess I'm gonna mulligan every single time if I don't have a Circle Initiate, an Afflicted Elite, or a Protector, and if I can't get that, then I'm gonna mulligan it.
Or just mean a 2-drop in general, right? Because you don't really want to be playing Circle Initiate on turn as your 2-drop if you can avoid it. It's a very bad card to be playing early, right?
It's extremely bad and it gets killed really quick, so it really
Mhm.
doesn't do anything but just give away my game plan.
Right. I mean, it's better. What you want to be doing with that card is playing it in conjunction with another card in the same turn. Like ideally, right, you're going 2-cost card, 3-cost card, 2-cost cards. One of them is an initiate. That's when you want the initiate, right? It's in conjunction with something else. Because then you're breaking arena alongside it. You want to be playing it as a 4/3.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to this turn. You've got 3 options. You can pass, you can play field, you can play shadow. What are the different benefits and negatives to those 3 options?
I will. I personally will always take field lane
Why?
because it's me. I have no other explanation for it.
Yeah,
I
well,
feel like
that's maybe a problem, right?
I I don't understand, I guess.
So what if they have a
Because I feel
Stormcloak
like
Vanguard?
then Affy dies, like to be perfectly honest.
So what if it was Shadow?
Stays alive. They
Mm-hmm.
don't use Stormcloak, they use something else.
Okay, what if it's their only 2-drop?
Guess on this thing I wouldn't think they're running Stormcloak.
Why not?
Have no idea.
Okay.
I told you I don't really understand all the new matchups yet.
Sure, you don't have the new decks. What if they have a Nord Firebrand?
Then they have a North Firebrand in their deck and I just learned something new.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of going it blind.
Okay. So again, if you don't know the decks, you need to kind of prepare for everything, right?
Well, if I keep on preparing for everything, like I guess I say, if like
Yeah, well,
like oh, if I throw this over there, you know what? It's just gonna get killed if they got the lucky drop. So
is there
you know
any
what I mean?
benefit to going field?
For me, it is. I
Why?
kind of have an understanding of what they got,
Why does it
or if
give
they
you a
have
better
answers.
understanding of what you have, of what they have?
Was because everybody kind of plays the similar cards that on the legend deck, so I can kind of get a gist of what they're playing,
Right, but I'm saying,
what
what?
kind of
How
answers
do
they might have.
how do you get less information if you go Shadow? If you play a 2-drop Shadow, they play a 2-drop Shadow. How is that less information? You playing a 2-drop field and them playing a 2-drop field?
I don't know. I just call the shadow lane the chicken lane, like to be
Why?
honest, because I like to go straight to the face.
Why is it better to go? Is field better for going face?
I think any lane is better to go face. It's just that I don't know. I just feel like if you control the field lane, you kind of control the tempo of the game.
How are you controlling the field lane with a 3/1?
I because I have board presence.
So what it allows you to do is you then have the choice to trade into their card or not, right? So for instance, if they played an Awakened Dreamer, you could choose to attack the Awakened Dreamer or their face. So you have that option. Does that benefit you?
Waking Dreamer.
It's a 2-mana 2/3. If they have a 5-power creature at the end of their turn, it gets +1/+1.
Ah, okay.
Or Suran Pawnbroker.
CERN Pawnbroker.
2-mana 2/3 plot, add a random 0-cost
Yep.
to your hand. Is it a benefit for you to have the option to trade into a Suran Pawnbroker?
I couldn't tell you because I don't know pretty too much about pawnbrokers. I know that's a plot card.
It's
Correct?
your opponent plays a 2-mana 2/3 in the field lane
Okay.
after you've played Afflicted Elite field lane.
I guess what the
Is
deck
there
that
a benefit to being able to attack the 2/3?
No, I'm not trading. I guess my strategy is I'm not trading anything.
Okay, so what is the benefit to being field lane?
I guess the correct play is to go play on the shadow lane.
Why is it the
But
correct play?
because it stays alive for one more turn, and then after that I can decide what I want to do.
So
Either protect it
it
with the local
doesn't
gatekeeper.
die to a charge creature, is right.
I don't die to any charged creatures whatsoever.
Right, because it's in shadow. What are some other benefits of going shadow first?
And then after that, since I had more cool gatekeeper, I can also protect it for another turn, so I can get 6 damage off Or wait, 5, 6, 7. So I can get a total of 8 damage off in 2 turns.
Right. You could have done that in field lane too, though, right? Because you could protect it in field lane with more cool again, correct? Like if you play a lit field and they can't kill it immediately, you can
Okay,
play
so
more
the
cool
smart
field
way,
to protect the
I
lit.
guess what you're trying to say, the smart play to play would, yes, I agree. I would play Afflicted onto the Shadow lane, so it saves 1, and then I can figure out it doesn't die to a charge card, and then I can get a total of 8 damage instead of what I just got on that turn was a total of 5 damage. No, yeah, I think I got 5 damage off that. But yes, I get what you're saying. If I throw it on the field, I'm pretty much gonna die
Well,
to a charge.
not pretty much. I mean, right, you could not. So that's one thing too to think about as well. Oops, hold up.
However, my strategy is smash face,
Okay.
like Hulk smash.
So let's say Afflicted Lit starts Shadow Lane. Then your opponent had a Wardcrafter, right? They play it Shadow Lane. On your turn, Afflicted Lit goes face.
Correct.
Right. More cool goes Shadow.
Yup.
Gives it a lit more attack. It goes face again. Get them to 22. More cool protects. Right.
Yes.
On their turn, they play something else, whatever it is. Let's think about a little bit of a different scenario. Actually, you know what? Okay. So your opponent then can trade in, right, to your more cool. Following turn, they can trade into your lit again. At this point, right, you could then transition to field if you wanted to instead. So say, for instance, so just as a hypothetical, right? You go more cool, you have your lit. They firebolt one of your creatures, they trade into the other one. They have a 2/1 in shadow. If you want, you can just go straight to field with another creature. So we're on turn 4 now. Or I guess turn 3, sorry. Then they have to play into it to contest. Right? Maybe you get another hit in on face, great. They've committed another creature to field. Now that they've committed something to field, you can go back to shadow. At this point in the game, they're very likely to be able to deal with creatures immediately as they come to field. So it doesn't matter that they have a 2/1 here, because like they're always going to be able to deal with creatures after they're summoned anyway. So then you can just start getting free hits. So effectively you stranded their 2/1 temporarily. Like the reverse of that. Sorry if this is complicated to follow.
No.
So
As you were.
you start a lit in field. You start Wordcrafter. You go more cool. You go face again. Right? Once again, they trade into a creature, and they firebolt the other creature. You can't go into field anymore because they have a 2/1 in field. Right? You can never go back into field ever again. So you go shadow immediately. For the rest of the game, you're in shadow lane. You see how that's different?
Totally get it. Yes, I see what your point
If
is
you,
that you can add to.
yeah, if you start here and you pull a creature here, then you actually get time in the field lane you otherwise wouldn't have gotten, and then they actually have to commit something into field when otherwise, right? And then you can go back to shadow again later. One thing to consider too, say that they have a Wordcrafter in hand and they don't have another 2 or a 3 drop, right? They play their Wordcrafter to contest. You go fields the next turn. They can't answer the creature in fields. You know, they kill your 2-drop, but you played something in field. You don't have a good response. Go field again. Now finally they have something. You can cast it out. Double hit. They replay it. Play something again. Take the efficient trade because now you have field control. You have face now. You got to choose your trade because you had field control by starting Shadow. So you got to think ahead with these kinds of things. The cascading ramifications of this stuff go a long, long way. And this deck's quite abnormal in the frequency with which it starts Shadow. But really with any deck, you should be thinking about really hard your lane placement every single turn, because I promise you it's really complicated, even if it seems like it's not very complicated.
No, I get what you're saying.
Okay, so you start a lit field. I'll just speed this up a bit. Play lit field. Opponent plays Wordcrafter. It's your turn again. What are your options?
Wait, are we going to talk about after he plays Wardcraft?
Yeah, now it's turn 2. What are your options?
My option is to hit face first. And then think about the turn.
Why would you do that?
Because I'm not going to give him a free trade since he's warded.
Are there cards in hand that can change how going face works? Do any of your cards change what you want to do with your turn?
Wait, what are you saying again? Like, I'm sorry.
Do any of your cards change the way that that's going to work?
They only add additional damage?
So would you want to play them before or after attacking with your Lit?
If the decision is to throw Morkel Gatekeeper to the field side?
Well, regardless of where it's going, if you're playing Morkel Gatekeeper this turn, do you want to play it before or after you attack with your Lit if you're going face?
Gonna play it before I attack on the face?
Okay. So before you just said you're going to attack and then you're going to think about the rest of your turn, right?
Yes.
So you would have lost 2 damage if you did that.
Absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
So yeah, in general, like, you know, it can vary, but you know, in certain situations, maybe you'll just need to like clear up what you don't need to think about first and then get to the rest of the stuff. But whenever it's possible, the turn timer in Legends is 1.5 minutes. Try to think through every single thing you're going to do in your turn before you do anything. If you can. And that's true for most games. So if you talk about more cool versus cast out, is there any consideration of playing cast out here?
I'm gonna say no. It's not worth it for a Wardcrafter.
Why not?
Because you can play a Wardcrafter and another card after, or they can play a guard on the next turn and then they use the same Wardcrafter I just threw them back to their hand to protect it and stop.
So the
all
summon
damage.
effect's dangerous, sure. The primary reason, right, is because cast out is we consider it's a tempo tool, and what that means is it's impacting the pace of play. It's enabling you to win not via running your opponent out of cards or taking efficient trades, but by causing them to be behind you in speed, right? So the way that it's doing that is because it's a 3-cost card, and if you use it to return a creature to your opponent's hand, the mana that they have to spend again relative to the amount that the cast out cost you, can cause them to fall behind you in terms of speed, right? If you target a creature that costs 2, your opponent will end up spending less mana than you spent. So they'll actually end up at a tempo advantage if they can saturate their mana for that turn. So you'll actually fall behind as far as like speed's concerned if you do that, right? The reason why the card can be powerful is because if you target a card that costs 5, you don't get ahead on cards or damage or anything, but you're ahead 2 mana, right? Because they have to spend 5 mana again to replay the card. That makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much make them lose that whole entire turn
Right.
by casting out.
If you can target a card that costs a lot, and it's a much
So
bigger downside for them to have to replay it.
basically, being in their shoes, they were all happy that they actually had a curve card to play that was actually great, and now it goes back,
And they
and
have to
now they're
replay it
being
again.
played.
But like you were
They
mentioning,
lose.
right? So for instance, let's say you bounce this Wordcrafter, they play a 3-drop on their next turn, and then on the following turn they play 2 2-drops. They play the Wordcrafter and something else. Or even next turn they play that in a 1-drop.
So
The
I'm
thing
kind of getting what you're saying. Like right
mhm.
now, I would say that them dropping the Warcrafter was a mistake
Why?
on their end because they should have just held off and just let them take the 3-hit damage. Is that what you're trying to say? If you're trying to think about the long game,
Why?
because they probably had better cards, but I couldn't tell what they had. So
Why
right
would
now,
why would they let you do 3 damage to them?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like the Warcrafter is better when it's comboed with another card instead of going by itself.
Sure, but the way that they lose this game is you're really fast, right?
They don't know that.
Well, they do because you played Afflicted a lot.
All right.
Right? No deck is going to play that card unless it thinks that it can win a race against its opponent, right? It can reduce its opponent's health total to 0 before its opponent can reduce its health total to 0.
I guess it just depends on what kind of deck the person's playing, what kind of answers he's got.
Right. But so for them, right, almost certainly the way that you win the game is, I mean, this is maybe going to sound very simple, but the way you win, that you, MrJay, are going to win this game is by killing them before they kill you. So what their priority is to prevent you from killing them. So in that sense, even if there's maybe a more highly valuable thing they can be doing later on with that Wordcrafter in conjunction with something else, that might not matter if they're just going to die. Because if they can do things that are higher value plays, more efficient plays, then as long as they're able to just prevent you from getting too far ahead early, then maybe they can just win the late game by default, right?
Yes. I'm listening to you. I don't know how to respond because like I'm trying to understand exactly what you're saying to me and kind of like really like stupid terms. You know what I mean?
Well, again, ask questions if I say something that doesn't make sense, because I think I do accidentally use kind of like terminology and stuff that you might not be familiar
Yeah.
with.
It's
So
just that you're using a lot of terminology. I don't know. It's just that
yeah, I'll try to address
I
that.
I
Sorry.
wouldn't use like
hmm
no, dude. It's totally the way you are. You know what I mean? I just kind of keep it simple. Like my models keep it simple, stupid.
Sure. So I'll try to, yeah, we can just talk about it in more simple terms. Um, so you're probably not going to play a cast out, right? Because it has more efficient uses later. It can get you farther ahead as far as like speed is concerned later in the game, right?
I guess I consider cast out as not just a card to play on turn 3. Like it's not. It's more of a situation
Okay, why?
card. It removes a threat or a really big threat that was played on curve.
hmm
Like if I don't have an Earthbone Spinner to kind of
Like a guard or a like Brynjolf or a Hand of Dagoth, right? That kind of stuff.
I that now I know that Hand of Dagoth is in that deck.
Yeah.
Yet to see it.
But again, on more of like a larger scale, right? That stuff about, the difference in mana cost being what is strong about that card is really important. And that's no matter what deck you're playing with or against, right?
So you're saying that cast off is. Are we talking about cast off the card in general being a 3-cost mana card?
So in general, the card is more effective when it's targeting cards that cost more because it's requiring your opponent to use more mana to replay their card.
Yes, I totally agree.
So
That
if you target something that costs 5, you're basically netting 2
yeah,
mana because it costs you 3, and they're going to have to replay their card for 5. So you're basically going 2 mana faster than them. Does that make sense?
2 mana faster, like.
So you're 2 mana ahead of them. So say on turn 5, they play a card that costs 5. Just say they play a 5 mana 5/5.
So like they
Hypothetically.
played that Brynjolf.
Sure. They on turn 5 they play Brynjolf.
Wait, how about we do this? How about we get away from wherever we're at right now, and then when we get to Brynjolf, we can talk about cast off?
Well, no, because it's relevant here. We're talking about whether you want to play it now or not. So think about the hypothetical.
Like, okay, I
Just
get it.
I'll draw it if it's like you can't if you okay. So they're at 5 mana. It's their turn 5. They play a sorry, this is kind of on both sides of the board. They play a 5-cost 5/5. Right? On your turn, you have cast out and a card that costs 2. So you use cast out on their 5-cost card, and you play your 2-cost card, your creature. So you have another Afflicted Elite. So on their turn, they played a card. On your turn, you just returned it to their hand again, and you developed a 2-cost card. So the net results of the two players' combined turns was basically just that you developed a 2-cost card and they developed nothing.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
So you ended up kind of developing 2 mana faster than them, right? You were ahead 2 mana in your ability to spend. It's like
I guess I don't see it as 2 mana. I guess I see it as that I have more board presence than he does, and he
right.
wasn't able to play anything on that turn.
Basically, right? Basically, you spent 2 mana that they didn't. Because your 3 mana card was worth their 5 mana card.
I guess I was able to use my turn efficiently. Then when they decided they wanted to, they just got slapped in the face with a cast off. Is that what you're trying to say?
The combination of these cards, right? So again, it's because the cast out is targeting a card that costs 5, and you can use the other 2 mana because it's your turn 5 then, right? You get to develop something while negating their play for the turn.
Okay.
Right?
All right, I kind of get what you're trying to say. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Okay. So
I win the long game as many times as I can kind of like keep them from using their whole entire curve with the cast out card.
I'm not talking about the game in general. I'm talking specifically about the use of this one card.
Yeah, no. I get what you're saying. Like, to use cast off is to use efficiently, and you win the temple. You pretty much, you said it was a temple card, correct? Which I don't disagree with.
So
whatsoever.
it's a card, right? That's
And
it's not permanently dealing with anything, but it can get you ahead from a speed perspective. And the way that it gets you ahead from a speed perspective is by allowing you to develop more quickly than your opponent is, right? So in this instance, you are, by using it in this way, developing 2 more mana worth of cards than they are on their turn.
yes, since I have a majority of 2 drops, yes.
Okay, so using it that way, you use 2 more mana than they do, effectively, right?
Yes.
So you're getting ahead of them from a speed perspective. So let's say you use it here, right? So it's your turn 2, you use your ring charge. I'm gonna just where is this? So it's your turn 2. You use your ring charge. You play cast out on their word crafter. And you get to go face for 3. On their turn, they play their word crafter back down again. And they play a 1-drop. They play, let's say, a Crown Quartermaster. So on your turn, you get 3 mana to spend. On their turn, they had 3 mana to spend. And the net result of the two turns was the 2/1 stayed in play, basically, because they replayed it. You developed nothing, and they developed a 1-cost card. Right? So in a sense, they developed 1 more mana worth of cards than you did, because you developed nothing, and they developed a 1 mana card as a net result. Does that make sense?
Yeah, never play cast out on turn 3.
Okay, but do you know why?
Yeah, because it's a waste of a turn. Because you're using your whole entire mana, we can use a combination of 2 cards to take out one of their big threats that they've probably spent their whole entire mana curve. That just, I understand what you're saying, but that's just the way I can describe it to you. Other than that's like the only way I can describe that I understand. Other than that, like I would have to show you that I understand by playing the game. Other than that, like I can't really explain it with words.
Okay.
I really explain everything by actions, not by words. Just kind of type of person. Sorry.
Sure. Okay, so we rule out cast out for this turn. So
Absolutely, that doesn't exist.
okay, so Morkul Gatekeeper is your primary option here.
Yes.
If you're gonna play it, what lane do you want to play it in, and why?
Well, I should have just played it on the field lane to keep on just keep on contesting, so I can still get way more damage with the Afflicted Elite. Instead, I decided to go to the shadow lane, but I guess I wasn't really thinking, to be honest. I kind of was just trying to listen to you and then trying to do this. So I thought at the time it was like the coolest thing to play, but in all honesty, it looks like the stupidest play ever, if you think about it.
Well, it's not the stupidest play ever. So let's think about it, right? Go a couple turns in the future
Here's
again.
the reason why it's kind of stupid is because like I'm gonna lose the 3-1, even if I say I think I buffed it up and I made it 5-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have saved it and reused it again because thinking they didn't have an answer. And what was my thing? I said I was like, they might have a fireball.
Yeah.
It's because I didn't know what they had on their deck, and I don't understand it.
But if
I don't
they
understand what typical.
but if they do have a fire, we talked about this too, right? If they do have a firebolt, they can still kill both creatures.
Yes, they'll
No
kill
matter
both
what, no
creatures.
matter which lane you go in.
Yeah, so yeah, no,
So
totally.
so there are some different things to consider actually, right? So if you go Morkul in the field lane, your lit becomes a 5/1, and it gets to go face. On their turn, they clear your Morkul. Then for you, your lit goes face again.
And then I have
And
another Mokul to play again,
sure, yeah, you have another
and
more.
to do the same thing until, like, I can do the
Mm-hmm.
same repeated action over and over until they have an answer for it. But then that's when I have after the what is it?
Yeah.
Since I have nothing else and I have a cast out, now we're getting to a
Right.
higher level of a curve. So cast out becomes more valuable to
Mm-hmm.
play if it reveals
Mm-hmm.
something that they played pretty big. So in that case, totally get it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the alternative though, because I think it is relevant to think about. Right? You don't want to just like jump to a conclusion. So if you're to play Morkul's Shadow, you go face for 5. It could even be for 3. You could Morkul buff itself, hypothetically.
Or wait, were we talking about how the way where I made the mistake and throw the Morkel by itself
Well,
versus
it's
leaving
not.
it
It's
on its
not.
own by 2/2?
It's not necessarily a mistake. Let's talk through it before we decide it's a mistake.
Well, I guess the mistake is like I had a situation where I could have kept the Afflicted Elite alive
Mm-hmm.
for another turn possibly, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess I was thinking way over my head since I actually had someone that was coaching.
Yeah, it's fine.
So it was more of like I pretty much had a brain fart.
All good. But let's think about
But
this, right? Because this isn't necessarily the wrong play, and let's talk about why. So if you go more cool Shadow, Afflicted Elite Field, or sorry, you keep the Elite Field and you go more cool Shadow. Lit goes face. On their turn, they trade Wordcrafter into your Lit. You play another more cool. You let it. You buff the other Merkle with it. That Merkle goes face. On their turn, the Wordcrafter is sitting here as a 2/1, and it can't attack anything. There's nothing in the field lane for it to attack. It no longer has a use because they know that you can reduce their life total to 0 faster than they can reduce your life total to 0, which means that they need to play defensively. So now this Wordcrafter isn't doing anything. It's just a 2/1 with no word that's just sitting there. And now this other Morkul you played isn't going to die to it. So after seeing that, do you think that one play is clearly better than the other?
yes.
Which play?
I say one play is smarter than the other. Then the other one is just being stupid.
Well, which play is better and why?
So the object game is trying to beat him up and hit him into the face and get him down to 0 before the next person, correct? Right?
Right, but you will do
So
that. But here's the thing, right? To consider the matchup,
But
you
I guess
should do that. You should do that by default, unless they can control you, right? You're playing offense and they're playing defense. They're not going to try to out offense you because they know they can't win that fight.
I guess it would have if I would have played Afflicted Elite on the Shadow Lane.
No, let's talk
I
about
guess
this play. Let's talk about from this position.
Right.
You played Afflicted Elite Field. They played
Right.
Wordcrafter Field. You can play more cool Field or Shadow. We just talked through the two ways that can go. Do you think
Yes.
one of the plays is clearly better than the other?
I think putting the Morkel on the field to protect the Afflicted Elite, the 5/1 damage,
Mm-hmm.
is a way better decision than what I did and left them unprotected basically.
Is that better even though the Wordcrafter then only gets to kill one creature, whereas if you put the more cool shadow, or whereas if you put the more cool fields, it gets to. So if you put the more cool field, the Wordcrafter gets to kill two creatures. If you put it shadow, it only gets to kill one creature.
I guess it depends on what cards I'm holding. If that situation was either, you know what I mean? Because I have the option to redo the same situation again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So let's say, okay, so let's say, so you go fields with your more cool.
Yes.
You target the Elite. The Elite goes face. On their turn, Wordcrafter eats your more cool. It's still a 2/1 on board. It's still healthy.
Yes.
And they play a 3-cost 3/3. Just a generic card. It's not like a real card. I'm just saying they play a 3-cost 3/3. Now you have a 5/1, and it's your turn. They have a 2/1 and a 3/3. You have a 5/1. And this is your hand +1 card. What's your play from that position?
Okay, so they threw 2 cards after Warcrafter decides
So they
to take
played
out
one
the ward.
card.
So Warcrafter just hits the
Hits the
Morkel
Morkul.
without the ward. So now it's by itself 2/1 without ward, and there's a 3/3 card
Mm-hmm.
that costs 3 that got played, and all I have is a 5/1.
Yep. So now it's your next turn. It's your turn 3. What do you think you do from this position?
Well, and I have these 3 cards left, right? The
Plus
Mortal
plus
and
one
Cast
more.
Out.
So I'll just speed this up a little bit. The reason why I bring this up is because you were saying before that the reason to go field is because you could maybe just continue to protect this afflicted elite. You said, okay, if I play more cool again, then I can protect it again for another turn, repeat the same thing again. But the issue is, if
now that 3/3 is there, the issue is that I can't clear the board if they do trade, so they take up on the
so now you have more cool field again, and if you do that, then they can kill both your creatures inefficiently because their 3/3 can attack into your 2/2, kill it, and be a 3/1. The 2/1 trades into your 7/1. So and then you end up running out of cards. Now you did 12 damage to them, so they're at 16. So if you can find 16 more damage, now that these cards are gone, then maybe it's okay. Alternatively, but the reality is, you wouldn't play the second more cool field in that position, right? You would have to play it Shadow because you wouldn't let them just free trade. So the reality is, you're actually not going to be able to protect your Lit again. So
the Lit has to die.
So then, on their turn 4, Wardcrafter gets to kill it, and then they're just left with a 3/3 sitting in field. Here's the thing, though. Again, it just kind of gets more complicated, but I think it's important to think about. So with this line, they ended up with a 3/3 sitting in field lane having nothing to do. The other long line we went through, where you go Shadow, or the immediate thing that happens when you go Shadow is they have a 2/1 sitting in lane with nothing to do, but then they play their 3/3 Shadow. Or sorry, this was blue before. Right? So now their 3/3 gets to contest your more cool. So basically, they end up with actually having a less valuable creature stranded in the field lane. Sorry if it's hard to picture all this. I know we're talking like multiple turns in advance a lot.
No, you're fine. I'm still tracking.
But yeah, so when it comes to, like, again, these things can be complicated enough that it is valuable to be like, you know what, it just feels right to go in this lane or go in this other lane. But as much as you can, try to think about why. Because there's a lot of reasons to do one thing or the other. And if you haven't thought in this way before, I hope that you can maybe try to practice it, because it's a really valuable skill.
Okay.
Cool. So you end up going more cool Shadow. Okay. They go Awakened Dreamer Shadow. So very similar to our 3-cost 3/3. And we see this exact situation. We talked through it, where now they have something contesting Shadow, but their Wardcrafter is stranded in the field lane. So you've got some options here. And we don't need to go quite as in-depth on every turn. But, I mean, I don't know. We can mostly go from there. I mean, we just spent, a long time on 2 turns. But I hope that that gives you an idea, at least, of the amount of complexity that's involved in every turn. So yeah, worth noting, like here, right, you end up using Cast Out on Brynjolf, which is much more powerful. It's actually that exact example. You spend 3 mana, and they can't actually afford to even replay the Brynjolf because it won't interact with your board, and you'll just hit them again. If you have another Cast Out, they lose the game if they play Brynjolf. So they're forced to interact with your board instead. So because of the high cost of their card, the Cast Out was much more impactful. And yeah, I mean, there's plenty of other things to talk about during the game, but on like a higher level, are there larger conceptual things that you wanted to talk about from this game, or just in general, maybe?
Nah, man, that's good. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I guess I just got to work on these little small things first before I can ask the bigger questions.
Well, I think these are bigger questions.
I get what you're trying to say. Like, I guess I just gotta, I don't know, I guess I see it as the basics from turn 1 to turn 2. It's like kind of understanding why I made the mistake and why I played the way I played. And I should have been
Yeah.
thinking more of like,
But what
I should have been
yeah.
thinking ahead more, but I sometimes tend to play with 0 fucks. I'm just gonna go hit you in the face. I don't care if you trade it, like, in a way.
I mean, I think what I would say is that those aren't the basics. I think that there are very few players on the planet who actually think through that stuff. And the point is not that you actually need to be thinking about it in that depth, but it's the fact that it exists. And just knowing that it exists, I hope, can give you some motivation to think through stuff at a higher level, if that makes sense. So I don't have any expectation you'll do anything with me again. If you do, that's great. If you don't, that's great.
Cool.
But I think it's always good to talk about what do you like, hypothetical, if you were to, work with me again, what would you want to work on between now and then? This could, again, if that's not going to happen, then it can just be, what are your next steps? What are the next things that you want to work on? What are like the first things that you want to work on?
Kind of want to rewatch this whole entire video of you and me talking because there were
Mm-hmm.
some things in the beginning that I kind of didn't really understand, and you tend to go really way past turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and think of sense because you have more knowledge of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So just my lack of card knowledge and lack of pretty much what is optimal for each curve hand.
Yeah, so card knowledge is something that you're just gonna get. You don't need a coach to get card knowledge. And you're absolutely right that that's just a basic homework assignment. Like, you're gonna just need to learn the cards, and you will over time. That's not gonna require coaching for you to memorize the cards. But I think as much as you can, yeah, definitely go and look at this again. I think that's a good thing to do. And B, I think now that we've talked about the different ways that games can play out and done kind of had this practice with thinking ahead, what I want you to do is go back and look at your deck list again, like the list of cards that you're playing, and think through what are the different ways a game can go. Think about, okay, well, what can I maybe do on turn 1, turn 2? And how can I interact? And are there cards that I would like types? It doesn't even have to be a specific card. The card might not exist in the game. What are types of effects that maybe I want that I don't have? What are ways the game can progress that with this deck? What does that tell me about the way the deck is operating?
well, it's just like you can't really have the perfect card all the single time because there's
Mhm.
always going to be a different class that's going to counter it. So the only
Yeah, but
thing
you,
you
but you
could do
can.
is play to the best situation possible and the kind of like the
Yeah.
game style that you want to do.
What I'm saying is, you can look at your deck list, and it's not that you have to say. It's again, I'm not saying like you just think about, oh, what's the optimal starting hand? Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can think about, okay, like what are the odds that I have a 2-drop? How badly do I need a 2-drop? What do my games? Okay, you can say if I don't have a 2-drop, what do my games look like? Okay, so then maybe I have a 3-drop. Okay, so I'm probably starting with this card. And if my opponent played a card on turn 2 or turn 3, then what does that mean for what I'm doing the next turn? Am I gonna immediately have to go to a certain lane because of the way that's gonna go? You can think through that stuff, and I think just having that practice and doing that can be good. But I mean, also too, there's enough of this stuff that you can learn just through play. I think the most important thing is just being deliberate when you play. I think you talked about it a lot. Like it's really easy to get into the habit of just kind of doing something. So yeah, I mean, even before you get to that kind of stuff, where you're trying to like think through lines, just practice being deliberate, like stopping yourself. Practice thinking through your whole turn before you act. That's a big thing. Yeah, we can start there. Like even if you can just do that, that's a big success. Like every turn, think through your whole turn before you do anything. Like if you can do that, that's gonna take you so far.
Understood.
All right, good stuff.
Word.
All right, perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks for hanging out, man.
Thank you, sir, for taking your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, totally.
Roger.
All right, cool. I will talk to you later. Okay. Um. Yeah, no problem, Jay.